everyone. This is AWS On Air, the Startups Edition, where we give you all the tips, the resources, the strategies to be able to help build your startup in AWS. I'm going to be with you every single week, Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with folks, experts from the startups team. And we are going to give you different resources to be able to help you to be able to best utilize AWS for your startup. So we've got a crew over here. Let's do some round of intros. My name is Jillian Ford, and I am a startup solutions architect. Kristen, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello. Thank you for joining us today. Jillian, thank you for inviting me. I'm Kristen Peralta. I'm a startup account manager on the startups team. I work with startups to help them navigate AWS and AWS resources to help them grow their businesses. I am excited to be here today.
Perfect. And Parth?
Hey everyone, my name is Parth. I'm a startup solutions architect, just like Jillian here at AWS. I've been here for about 5 years now. And yeah, thank you for having us on the show, Jillian.
Yeah, perfect. And really we are here doing this live because we want to be able to interact with you. We want to answer your questions. Today's topic is all about being able to best utilize AWS and startup resources. I love seeing where so many people are from. We've got Jason from Florida, Diego from Ecuador, Yagis, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, from Istanbul. I love Istanbul. Christian from Argentina. We've got Nigeria, really global audience here for today. And a question that we get asked a lot at AWS is really how do you navigate the different resources? Where do I go really when I'm getting started? So Kristen, this is probably something you get a lot.
Yes.
So when someone asks you, like, where do I first go when I've got a question about AWS for my startup, what do you tell them?
Yes, so this is a common question. AWS has a lot available, and so a quick search can sometimes be overwhelming because there are so many options and places to look. So best practice guidance is to take a look at the Startup Resources Hub. There's a landing page specifically for startups that reviews some of the most commonly asked questions. It also has a very helpful bright orange button to request help from your account team. So it's a great place to look to start exploring what's possible, read some customer stories, see how other customers are building with AWS, find out about some of the programs that are available, and then reach out to your account team and ask them, is this available for me? What is possible for my company based on my industry, based on my vertical, based on the stage of growth, based on the number of people we have? How can you help us? And then your account team will help guide you through that journey.
Yeah. Parth, anything to add?
No, just as Kristen mentioned, the startups landing page is one of the best places to begin. And I could share my screen here to just pull that up. Yeah. So once you're on this landing page, as you can see, there's a lot of information that you can sift through, right? On the top, you have startup stories in terms of what startups are currently doing and currently building with us, right? There is a startup specific blog section that talks about a lot of the new upcoming startups and the tech that they're working with. We also have, this is pretty interesting for me as someone who works in technology. The Now Go Build series with Werner Vogels, right? This is upcoming startups and where they talk about how they're trying to influence and change the way we think about common technology and about the future, right? Using technologies like AI, ML, containers, and high performance computing, all of it. So this is another great place to see what is possible and what others are doing out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I mean, this video series, it's something that showcases some success stories of other startups, other businesses all over the world of how they've been able to use AWS to really be able to innovate and build their business.
And I'll just add something that's special about these videos is that they often highlight not just the AWS technologies that are used, but AWS programs that are leveraged. So, look at how is it that we use AWS technology and then perhaps work with an AWS partner to help us, bring that technology to life and assist with the actual hands-on help? Or how do we work with an AWS partner to alleviate some of the, undifferentiated heavy lifting of monitoring, for example?
Yeah.
By going to AWS Marketplace and using a partner to get that off of your plate. And then work with your AWS account team to figure out where can we deep dive specific services and bring our product to life faster, accelerate our growth, and then work together and be on that next Let's Go Build series.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And I also want to, call out, there was a question because I've seen a lot of people have been hopping in before we started the beginning of intros. So for those who kind of just came in and are wondering what it is that we're really covering today, this is if you've got a startup and you're trying to understand how do you navigate AWS? What are the resources that AWS has for startups? This is what we're going to be talking about today. And of course, bring your questions. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So if you've got questions for your startup, you want to start a startup, you work at a startup and you want to understand really how AWS can help, put those questions in the chat. We're going to be looking at those. But we also are going to answer questions that we know just from what we hear startups ask us all the time. So another one that really comes up pretty frequently is like, okay, I'm stuck on a certain type of problem. Where do I go? How do I find that right answer? I know as solutions architects, Parth and I, we can probably get this pretty frequently with customers. So what do you do in those scenarios, Parth, when someone comes to you and they're like, I'm stuck, help, what do I do?
So instead of, first of all, there are a lot of tools available on the internet, right, to look for answers based for technology questions, right, for technical questions. So let's say you have Stack Overflow, you have Reddit, you have these other platforms that are there where the community of developers that work on AWS and with AWS, help each other out. Similarly, there are a few other tips and tricks that I'd like to kind of point out, right? So the first one is using Repost. I'm not sure if a lot of
good call.
Folks have heard about it. So what Repost is?
Haven't. So great. Great call out. So yeah, please tell more about Repost. I just got
excited. Yeah. So Repost is like you can say that it's the Stack Overflow for AWS, right? Where customers can come in, search for their questions, ask questions, and get them answered by AWS experts, right? So it could be someone who works at AWS that helps you answer that question, or it could be the community of developers that are, working with AWS day in and day out. So that's a great place to start. For example, we can, search for a random question about databases. You can see that, you have the common questions answered fairly straightforward. So you do not have to do that research and put in those hours to kind of, find the right answer there, right?
Yeah. And just some context, because I know a common question is like, we've got Stack Overflow already. Why do we even have Repost? And so kind of like the back history of Repost is that, so solutions architects like Parth and I, when in the past we've had customers come to us with questions that we didn't know, we had an internal repository where it's our own internal forum where we could ask questions amongst our peers and be able to get answers from other experts on a certain topic. And so what the team realized is like for the course of years, we've had like so much information just collectively in this own internal tool. Why not be able to repurpose it in a way that can get the actual answers and put it in a public facing type of website that you can be able to benefit from all of just like the shared wisdom and that's available to you that we've already been kind of just like sharing only internally. So that's really what this is designed for. But now there's even additional enhancements that make it much, I think, faster for you to be able to get those answers. So like you'll see in some of the questions that like maybe over here that there are people who work on the service teams or other experts on topics that have gone in and answered those questions. So this is like a resource you want to bookmark. Like maybe some of you here might not even have a startup. Maybe you work at a different company. Maybe you're learning AWS. Like bookmark this page and definitely keep it as a place where you want to keep going to. Yeah. Kristen, what about you? I mean, when someone emails you and they're like, all right, I'm stuck, help, what do I do? From your perspective, what do you advise them?
Great. Well, I want to comment on the preface of the question around somebody emails me. If somebody is in the place that they already know their account manager and they email me, they're probably in a good place because they at least know where to get started. So at the point that somebody reaches out to me, it's really a question of figuring out what is the issue. Is something broken? Is something on fire? Are customers not able to use your website, for example? If there is an issue like that, it's really important to go to support and create a support ticket as quickly as you can. And if you need something quick, take a look at your support tier and ensure that you are upgrading your support tier to receive the SLA that matches your demand. So if you're using basic support, for example, that you need a response within an hour, it's going to get stuck. That doesn't meet the SLA that you need. So take a look at AWS support, take a look at the support tiers and match your support tier to your SLA, and you can follow the instructions online for how to change your support plan and make that request. If the request is something like, we would like to explore a new service where it's more more discovery based, then it's reaching out to your account team, maybe looking at an online webinar or letting us know, hey, I'm interested in exploring. Is there a way for us to cost optimize? Is there a way for us to improve performance? Those are different level conversations that tend to go to your account team.
So good call outs. And I think with those call outs, I think it also makes sense. And I think Parth is anticipating this, is like going over the support plan, because I get it. Like it can be confusing to look at this page and be like, which one do I pick? What's the difference between the two? So Parth, do you want to get us started of like really, how would you really explain like which support plan is really right for the person?
Yeah. So in terms of choosing your right support plan, at least, right? So the basic and developer support is good for startups and customers that are currently working on building their MVP, right? Once you have something that's live and it's customer facing, it's business critical, is when we would recommend at least going to the business support tier, right? That's when you get access to 24/7 live interaction with support engineers. And that's when you want to make sure that in a business critical event, you have some support from AWS to help you fix things, right? That's when you would choose the business level support.
That I think I love that. I think I would also add, because I see for some people maybe like they don't necessarily have an app or like that's already like live in production, but they're building so fast and that they're like, okay, it's 12 o'clock at night. I need an answer now because like I've got to get this up and running really as quickly as possible. And that's where like the SLAs with like business support are going to allow you to be able to get those answers, instead of with developer support, you'd have to wait till business hours.
Right.
Yep.
Another thing to consider as you're growing is potentially using an AWS reseller as a partner. There are AWS resellers that offer additional benefits around account support and support ticket escalation if you resell through them. It doesn't cost you anymore. You're still getting AWS services. You still have access to an AWS account team, but you are adding on an additional level of support through the AWS network. So that's something else to consider as well. It wouldn't necessarily address that initial need. If something is already underway, use support. But in terms of planning, it's certainly worth taking a look at partners and seeing, is there a partner that might be able to add a little bit more value to you, so that when when that time of need comes up, you have one more person to reach out to or one more resource to assist.
That's a great call out. And I know there is maybe some people who might have, I guess, joined late, and so they just want to catch up on the context of what it is that we're talking about today. This is really all about you're starting your startup on AWS, and how do you best utilize the resources that AWS has for your startup? And we got into support plans because that's really a common question that we see startups coming to us to ask about, is like, okay, which support plan should I be using for my startup? All right. So maybe let's go into how do you keep up to date with information? There's just like, I mean, AWS is innovating really fast. And that's really why all of us are here, right? Is like, we are here to help kind of understand what's happening and being able to help dissect that and give that information to you. But there's definitely other suggestions that people can be able to do to keep up with. So Parth, what are some of the things that you do to help you that you could share as advice for other people that want to be able to keep up to date with what AWS is launching, new announcements?
So there are a lot of different resources and a lot of different places that you can look at, right? So specifically around this time of the year when reInvent has just happened, right? reInvent announcements are the best place to see what new features like we've come up with, and new services and advancements in those services as well. We actually have a YouTube channel which plays all the sessions that have happened on reInvent on demand as well. I just try to pull that up here, and I think that's one of the places that I would go for sure.
That's great. Kristen, anything that helps you to keep up to date?
Oh goodness, I follow Parth's advice. I enjoy listening. As I exercise, as I travel, when I have downtime, I enjoy listening back to resources on demand. I find those very helpful for keeping up to date and for sparking new ideas. There are a number of places where you can catch up on what's happening. And if you are interested in like more of a business level conversation, how are startups raising funding? How are startups partnering with AWS? What are tips around building cost-effective architecture to support a SaaS platform? That's a different level of, that's like a different type of topic, right? So there, through the startups resources page, if you poke around here, you'll find there's a startup podcast that you can subscribe to. There's a startup blog you can subscribe to. There's a Clubhouse series with Mark Birch that's interesting to listen into and features founders every week. The reInvent sessions are great. And there's also industry-specific landing pages. The same way that there's, right now Parth is sharing the startups landing page, there are pages specifically for industry. So if you're in healthcare life science, or you're in fintech, or you're in agriculture, you're in, pick your industry, hospitality. Also find the landing page for your industry and see if you can sign up for a blog post or stream from your industry as well.
I love those suggestions too. We do collectively have so much experience and knowledge across all different industries because we see the patterns at work. And so these best practices that you see here are really going to help you to be able to start doing things off in like the most optimal way instead of having to start from scratch and figuring it out on your own. And in terms of, I guess, like understanding what are the like new announcements of AWS services, I would say my personal opinion is the AWS On Air show, which happens every single Friday, because that's where we interview people from the service team. They'll do demos of certain announcements, and that's a great opportunity to be able to understand the service, but not just from like reading the documentation, but also being able to ask some questions, actually being able to see it. And I think it gives you just like a different perspective aside from just reading like a launch announcement on the blog, for example. So that's definitely something that you want to check out. That's also on this handle, the AWS On Air channel, which is the actual AWS On Air show that happens every Friday.
I think this is related. I'll just add it on.
Yeah.
There are also AWS Lofts, which can be a great place to network with other people building on AWS who are local to you. These lofts are around the world. And it's a way to meet in person. So I'll just add those. Check and see if there is a loft near you. They often host in-person events and offer time to speak with an expert if there's a particular topic you'd like to deep dive.
That is a gold suggestion. I mean, so I think we should go into this a little bit more because the AWS Loft is like really rich with resources. Yeah, I mean, you just need an Activate account to be a sign up. We've got different like virtual events that are happening. We've got in-person events in San Francisco, New York, possibly other parts of the world, but that one you'd have to double check. I'm not 100% sure if there are other global events that are happening. But this is the landing page. Would be in the actual Startups Loft page that you'd want to go to. Parth, have any personal experience that you want to share about the Loft or other just observations about the Loft that it can offer?
Yeah, personally, I've been fortunate to be at the Loft a couple of times to present and also be at the Ask an Expert bar. So that's amazing. Sometimes it's staffed with members of the AWS team for customers as a co-working space who come there and work together. The entire environment as such also is very collaborative, to be really honest, since everyone is working on some sort of common technology, and there's a lot of people continuously interacting with each other and trying to learn more, right? So even if it's just for a day and treating it as a co-working space, I think it's definitely worth a try.
I love that. I love the call out of like the co-working and networking aspect. And they've had in the past some networking events there too. So I would just like make sure you look at the calendar of what's coming up, because even if you would just want to go to like meet some other startups that are like in the New York City, San Francisco, or other potential global cities around the world, like sometimes we host those. So yeah, this is a fantastic resource. All right. Let's see. And of course, if you've got other questions about really how can AWS how can you utilize AWS to grow your startup, resources to be able to build your startup on AWS, let us know in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat, so make sure that you, Kristen, Parth, myself can answer those questions for you. So we've gone over Activate, we've gone over the actual Loft, gone over industries. Now let's talk about for those people who are technical. And so there's a ton of different resources that are out there that can help them to be able to build their startup faster, be able to maybe use some sample code. So maybe let's go through some of that. So one of them that's pretty common is AWS Samples that maybe some people don't necessarily know about on GitHub. So AWS Samples, it's sample code for a lot of different types of problems that we collectively see across all of AWS. And so Parth, I'm curious from your experience as a solutions architect, are there specific samples or use cases that come to mind to you that stand out as an example for what people can look for?
Yes. So let's take a simple example of building out your first VPC, right? Where you need to have public private subnets, you need to have your networking perfectly set up in a way where you're starting off in a secure manner, right? AWS Samples is a great place to begin. You have your CloudFormation templates or your CDK code that you can just pull into your repository and kind of start from a standard, right, which helps you build on that security piece. And similarly, we also have a couple of other resources that we have the quick starts that are available, which are also CloudFormation templates that we have built on. That's just another resource that you can start leveraging, right?
Yeah, this is like I guess it's kind of similar to what I was saying earlier about bookmark repost. You want to bookmark this. I mean, any code that you can kind of reuse that um, that works, that other people within AWS have used. We want to help you be able to build faster. So that's one thing that I love about AWS Samples. And another one that's kind of it just reminded me as you were talking about that is for all my SaaS businesses here. We've got something kind of similar to this called SaaS Boost within GitHub, kind of similar. It's on a GitHub repo, and it showcases other best practices, different kind of reusable code snippets that you can put and use for your application. So such as, hey, you know that you're going to need metering, for example. You know that you're going to need an onboarding type of module within your SaaS app. So these are just resources here. You can literally just copy paste the code into your application and be able to start using it. Like, I love anything like that. I got excited about. All right, so we've got SaaS Boost. We've gone through AWS Samples. And Kristen, anything you wanted to add about here? Or were there other things about partners you wanted to go into?
Sure. I think for the topic of being technically efficient,
yeah,
I will suggest taking time to do a well-architected review. And you can do one of those self-guided. You can do one with your solution architect by requesting one through your account team. You can do one through an AWS partner. So on Marketplace, if you just enter well-architected review, there are partners that pop up that will offer them, often for free. So it's a great way to take a look at what you're doing now, is what you're building in best practices, and is it going to allow you to scale so that as you onboard that next big customer, you can focus on expanding rather than correcting or re-architecting things that were overlooked the first time. Is your security in place so that when you especially if you have industry specific requirements for security, are you ready so that when you get that first contract, you can just turn it on and not have to do this, last minute scramble or turn away business, worst case, because you're not SOC compliant or HIPAA compliant or whatever requirement exists for you. So taking advantage of some of those best practices, proactive conversations with either your AWS SA or an AWS partner can really help you avoid some, repeat cycles and additional work and labor later on.
That is such a good call out. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what the well-architected review is, think of it like a cloud type of assessment that you can be able to run based off of cloud computing best practices. And it's really just a way for you to be able to say, look at, all right, here's where you're at, and here are recommendations that you can use to improve your security, improve your cost optimization. There's no right or wrong answer. It's not a test. It's not a pass fail. It's not like, and every business has areas in which they can improve. And you don't even have to do the whole thing. You can just hey, I want to focus on cost optimization right now. I don't want to focus on security right now, and that's fine. Parth, I guess, question for you is do you have any recommendations of when is it that someone should think about you doing a well-architected review, even if it's just one pillar, and really the frequency in which it makes sense for them to do it?
So I usually recommend the startups that I work with to do them at least twice in the year, every 6 months, right? Because startups go at such a fast pace, things are changing really quickly. And it's always good to kind of baseline at where you're standing, right? Whether it's with cost optimization, whether it's with security, whether with reliability, right? So about 6 months, 4 to 6 months is the right period to go in, reassess where you're at, note down things that you need to improve on, and work in a more iterative manner than just treating it as a one-off review and being like, hey, I'm done,
I love that. All right, so we've gone through the well-architected review. Yep, you can go through that again on your own. It's designed that you can go through it on your own, or you can go through it with a solutions architect. We've gone through AWS Samples, workshops. That's a good one to go over. And one thing I like about the workshops, and I guess some context here, is that we have plenty of different workshops that cover a wide range of different topics, from analytics pipelines to building a recommendation engine, as an example. And I think one thing for startups that kind of helps, because if you're thinking about, hey, I want to be able to build a data lake, an analytics pipeline, looking at workshops can help you to be able to think through, how do I build this for myself? So you don't necessarily have to go through the workshop, but you can kind of look through it, look through the steps, the code, to help you to be able to solve your specific problem. Kristen, I mean, have you seen any customers or examples of using workshops to be able to help them be successful?
I do have customers that have used workshops. I think it's a great option to build your skill set, and certainly to uplevel.
Good call. Yeah.
In terms of ongoing training and innovation, this is a great resource. And there's a number. This is one of several training options that can help you and your team.
Yeah. What about you, Parth?
Yeah. I mean, if you're ever wondering, what a service looks like, how you can interact, different pieces of your architecture together. You want to piece in, let's say, serverless from a database perspective. You want to try out Aurora serverless, for instance, right? These workshops are a great resource to, work hands-on on these new technologies that come out, right? And it definitely helps with, that development component for an individual.
Yeah.
And another thing in terms of, just learning and development that I wanted to mention was Skill Builder. I'm not sure if a lot of people know about this. This has a lot of free, featured content, and it's got some subscription-based content as well. But it's got like let's say the developer associate path, or the solutions architect professional path, right? And it's got these hands-on, on-demand digital training kind of mix of both of them, which can help you grow your skills in the cloud, right?
That is such a good call out. These resources, I mean, all of these resources that we're sharing you today, like, these are built by experts in AWS on the topic. So like the workshops, for example, that Parth was showing you, this skill builder, the courses, these are built by experts on those topics to be able to share their learnings, best practices of how they would build something with you. So that's really, I think, is like, a lot of times that's like the fastest way to be able to figure out an answer if you're stuck on something, for whatever your use case is. All right, so I know we've gone through a lot, because there's so much, I guess, really to unpack here, and so much, I guess, that we've learned over the years of how AWS can help startups. Let's talk about really, like, let's see, we've got your account team. That's a great question. So Kristen, when someone said you talk to a customer for the first time and they want to understand, like, Kristen, who are you? Who's your account team? What are some things that you tell them?
Absolutely. So I'm an account manager. My role is to help startups navigate their way through AWS products, AWS people, AWS programs, anything related to AWS that can help you accelerate your business. I'm kind of I consider myself something of an AWS Sherpa, right? Like I want to help you find what you need. I'm not often the final destination, but I'm trying to help you get there. So really the role of the team is to help you figure out, based on your end goal, what is the quickest way to get there? Because wherever you are in your startup journey, whether you're just getting started or you're a little further along, time is important, and figuring out how to be most efficient with your time and not repeating resources and spending time where it is inefficient is going to help you. So, ideally we like to start with a goal. We're looking to onboard our first large customer. We're looking to achieve a particular type of compliance, and let your account team know, what is it you're trying to achieve? in the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is that makes sense for you, that is your big, hairy goal that is going to really make a difference for you to accelerate your business right now. And then what we do is we pull that back against, we pull back your story and share it with our team and ask, team, what options do we have to help this startup grow? If growth for you means more effectively, like launching your product faster, we have a story in the startup stories here on the resources page about a company called Spacelift that reduced their time to market, and they were able to launch their services in half the time that they had planned because they were able to align with their AWS team, with service specialists to deep dive products, to review architecture, to set up a go-to-market plan, leveraging ISV Accelerate through the AWS Partner Network team. And I know I'm throwing out a lot of things that are maybe new, but we can talk more about them. If you let your team know this is our end goal, they can say, okay, we need to have you talk with this technical team, and then we want to introduce you to our go-to-market team, leveraging the AWS Partner Network, and have you sign up and see if we can feature you on AWS Marketplace so that it's easier for your customers to procure your product. I think I shared a lot of new things.
That was gold. Yeah.
Please ask, let me know what stood out about that and what maybe it makes sense to elaborate on.
I love that. Yeah. Parth, anything you would add from your perspective as a solutions architect?
Sure. So while as part of your account team, right, I'm something like a technical counterpart to Kristen, right? Kristen and I have been part of an account team together for about 2 years now, right? So most of the technical stuff that comes in, whether it's best practices, whether it's you have a modernization project, you have a migration that you want to go through, right? Things like that is what we as solutions architects help on, right? And Kristen's mainly on the business side, and the essays are on the technical side.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. There was a lot of things that we were going over earlier that Kristen, I think you mentioned, like things about like marketing, go-to-market. So maybe you can kind of unpack that a little bit more of some different, I guess, like ideas for startups here.
Sure. So for go-to-market, there's co-building together, co-marketing together, and co-selling together. And all of those are different motions of how you can approach go-to-market with AWS. Beginning stage, co-build is really about connecting you with resources to more quickly get the foundation of your product started and make sure it's working the way that you want so that you can delight your customers and have that right product market fit that you have been seeking, right? That's conversations with your solution architect, introductions to service specialty solution architects, perhaps workshops that deep dive, the art of the possible. What is possible, and can we help do some brainstorming and innovation with you? Getting past that, we start to look at co-marketing, things like, can we do a blog together? Is there an innovative way that you are using an AWS service to help meet your customer needs? There's a customer, Zigo, they're based out of Europe. They worked with their AWS account team to help drive down insurance premiums for their customers. So this is an example, and they ended up putting together a blog post. The blog post is now available on the Startups resources page. So this is an example of how you could lean in, look at a specific service, work backward from a customer need, let your account team know what it is you're looking to drive and deliver. And then we can share the story together, and then you can use that as you go about trying to earn new business. You can share it with your sales team and say, this is a blog post that talks about how we drove customer outcomes, and it talks about how we're aligned with AWS, this much bigger player. And then we can look at co-sell. Is there a way that we can partner together to help you sell your services faster, reduce your sales cycles? That could be taking a look at a specific point of friction in your sales cycle and seeing, where is the team getting stuck, and is there a technical way that we can re-architect or revision to help you close those cycles faster? Or it could even be around potentially leveraging Marketplace, posting your service on Marketplace so that it's easier for customers to validate and confirm, security best practices and procure. All of that and more is available through the AWS Partner Network. Parth is sharing the screen now, so you can register here and see some stories here for how other customers have leveraged the network, or you can reach out to your account team to ask more.
Such great call outs. And I know some of you maybe are still at those early stages. They're like, all right, I'm still ideating on my business idea. I haven't quite started my business, but I think some of these resources, at least like, I know we're throwing a lot. So this could be like, all right, I know maybe you set a goal for yourself. Like, all right, I want to be able to be into the partner network. Like, it's like 1 year from now. I know I'm not there yet, but so take some of these as like you bookmark it for later. But some of the resources maybe we shared earlier are things that you can do now. Parth, anything to add here?
Yeah, just Kristen brought up the AWS Marketplace as well, which is also another good resource for startups to look at, right? A lot of these products that we usually interact with or we're using on a day-to-day in a startup, right? Let's say you're using, a firewall, or you're using a certain set of monitoring tools, right? The AWS Marketplace is a good tool to use to integrate these external provider services into your AWS stack, right?
This is also potentially a way to help consolidate your billing. If there are services that you were using that you were currently paying a recurring spend for example, CrowdStrike, and you were to change that procurement to going through AWS Marketplace, that's a way to simplify your billing so it all appears through your AWS bill. And a number of partners offer promotions for AWS startups. So if you take a look here and see that there is a company that you are working with that has an offering on Marketplace, it's worth reaching out and asking, are there startup promotions that are available? Is there maybe a way that we can be rewarded for both working with AWS? It's not everybody offers it, but it's worth asking about.
Yeah,
and potentially help you save some money as well as consolidate billing.
Great call out. Yeah, so we've covered a lot. Anything else you think that we're missing you want to add?
We have covered a lot, but we have not yet covered funding, which is something else I know we had flagged and we're so often asked about. Is now as good a time as any?
Yeah, right. Let's get into, I guess, mainly about Activate and really the different credits, like programs within Activate. How does that work? Kristen, you probably get this question asked a lot. So yeah, maybe don't take it away from here.
Sure. So I'll share when we talk about Activate and when we talk about credits and funding and programs that have to do with, credits, there's a few different ways to approach cost optimization and credits. So very often a customer just asks, are there credits, which is a wide sweeping generic question. If you're starting out, certainly see if you are eligible for AWS Activate. It is a credit program that is available both for founders as well as for companies that are funded by venture capital, by private equity. If you are working with a portfolio company who has a relationship with AWS, raise the question to them, are you working with AWS Activate? Could we be a part of your portfolio and qualify for Activate funds? This is a really great option if you are early on in your journey up to Series A. And it's a larger bulk of funds. It comes with some additional benefits around, an account team that is going to support you in building your journey and offer best practices around how to get started. It's not just the credits, it's also access to an Activate portal, which includes, special promotions from our partners who are interested in working with startups and supporting startups and offering you tools that will help you build faster. So certainly check that out. Something we talk about with later stage startups is figuring out how do we build in a way that helps you accelerate your business so that rather than looking at, we want to include cost optimization as well and reducing cost and taking advantage of reserved instances and savings plans. And if those are new terms, those are options for you to reduce your cost. Once you know what your baseline is, you commit to a spend over a year or 3 years, and in exchange for that, you get a discount. You don't need an account manager to do it. You just go into your Cost Explorer, see what is recommended, and go ahead and turn those on. But ideally for a later stage startup, what we want to do is help you figure out how to grow efficiently. Again, taking a look at that well-architected review, taking a look at the services that you're using. Is there a way that we can modernize and make services run faster so that you're just spending less to begin with? Because ideally, that's a healthier way to grow. If you can just be a bit more frugal to start with, so that as you grow, you're increasing your profit and not needing to, look so much at credits.
So true. Yeah. Oh my God. So true. That's so well said. Parth, anything to add?
No, that's on in terms of the Activate and being part of the program. As Kristen mentioned, there are a lot of infrastructure pre-built templates and other tools that are present on the Activate console as well, similar to something like AWS Samples, right? Which is also going to be beneficial to leverage while building out and while starting out, your tech stack. So.
Perfect. I know probably a lot of you might be like, wow, there's been so many different topics that we've covered today. Fortunately, this live session is going to be recorded and it's going to be on YouTube. So it's something you're definitely going to want to just bookmark and kind of revisit later when it's like the right time. Like, hey, maybe for you right now, you just need to focus on building. And so you can go back, watch the video, look at the resources that we went through, and maybe later there might be a time where maybe the marketplace, the partner network, those things might make sense for you. So this is just kind of something you want to look at, and you can be able to look at through on YouTube where it'll go out. I know we've absolutely covered so many different topics today. This show is going to be happening every single week, every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I know some of you are in all different time zones around the world. So I wish I could tell you what those times are in your local time zone. But keep up to date with AWS On Air, because that's where we're going to be doing those announcements of what the shows are. But this one's just on all things related to startups. So next week, our topic is going to be about how to choose your first architecture. Should you use a monolith, containers are serverless? We're going to be going over that. So that is on January 31st. And then on February 7th, we're going to be talking about building a SaaS MVP, which I know probably a lot of you here probably are building some type of software as a service. You're targeting enterprises, startups, small business. How do you think about those security best practices, multi-tenancy? And we're going to talk about a lot of those different topics in that conversation. And that's on February 7th. Of course, if you have any different topics related to startups that you want to be able to see on the show, my Twitter handle is right here next to my name. I'm trying to see if I can point to it. There we go. It's right there. Miss Jill Ford. You can hit me up on Twitter and tell me, hey, I'm building a startup. I want to know about this topic. And I will make sure that we cover it on the Startup Show. Kristen, any parting advice for any of the startups here, people here maybe thinking about building a startup that you can give them?
Certainly. There was a lot covered today. I think maybe as a next step, if you can set a cadence in your calendar, whatever time makes sense for you, to come back to the startup resources page and just browse, even if it's a 15-minute check-in every other week, just come back and see what is in the banner. Like this week in that blue banner, and it's small for me to read, this is highlighting an upcoming event that would be fantastic to be a part of. And at the bottom of the screen, if you don't mind sharing, Parth, scroll down. There's another event that's being highlighted. Yep, it was there.
Oh, the Awesome Day?
Yes. Yeah. So I think this is a good place to look back, watch a customer story, be inspired by how other companies are building, see the services that they're using, see the programs that they're leveraging, check out the upcoming events. And then, at the point that you get stuck or you think, wow, I'm really ready to dig in more, then click the button, reach out to your account team and see how they can help you in your journey.
That was huge. I mean, I just can't emphasize how good of a piece of information that was. Someone who's worked here for 5.5 years, knowing what it takes to really understand this and help learn for all of you. Like, this is something you want to be able to watch these resources that we have. I think if you go through all the resources we went with you today, even though it sounds like it takes a lot of time, personally, I think it's actually going to save you more time, because like the time investment in yourself of being able to learn maybe how something works, doing your research on the documentation, asking those questions on Repost, it's going to put you in the right direction faster, instead of you having to figure it out on your own, banging your head against the keyboard more times. So I think it definitely makes sense. Parth, what about you? Any last piece of advice for people based on today's conversation?
Just piggybacking on what Kristen mentioned, there is new programs, resources, technology coming out every day here at AWS. So, having the habit of coming back in and checking in regularly is definitely going to be helpful. And I know we've covered a lot today, but this has been great.
All right, Parth, Kristen, thank you so much. I mean, both of you have so much experience and wisdom talking to startups, and the stuff that you shared today is just super valuable. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone who joined in today. Tune in every single week. I know people from all over the world. It's so awesome to see you. And I can't wait till next week when I see you. We're going to be talking about choosing your first architecture on AWS.